So welcome everyone to the Gardening Club today. This is our November call. We kind of started off with a few, a few announcements, and then we have about 30 minutes for status updates. So we have, at the moment, unless Holmes shows up, a couple of speakers, and we'll just kind of split the time up in there. And then, of course, if anyone else has anything they'd like to bring up, we have time for that as well after the status updates. And then we kind of have just a little wrap up where we just reiterate if there are any community asks for the from the projects themselves, or provide contact information, how to get in touch, things of that nature. So we go over that. In terms of announcements, a few things since the last gardening club. All these are links out to the Electric Coin Company blog. So be sure and go there if you'd like more information. But a few highlights. So the ECC owners, who, the shareholders essentially, agreed to donate ECC, Electric Coin Company, to a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization called the Bootstrapped Project. That's kind of done consistent with ZIP 1014, which established the Dev Fund, but it's a way to ensure that the maximum amount of value from the Dev Fund it flows into development effort for Zcash itself. Gitcoin Grants launched recently with a $25,000 matching pool for Zcash related projects. So if you're interested in any of that, again, a link out there on our blog. So be sure and get out there and submit your project. And then Josh, who I believe is on the call, wrote a really phenomenal article on privacy is normal, safe, and essential. And it was just kind of a personal experience of his, but it framed it really well. So that's definitely worth a read. And then we have our Arborist call coming up this Thursday. Arborist calls are always typically the first Thursday of the month. And Arborist calls are focused on protocol development. And that's where we talk about, what's going on with Zcash itself from the protocol perspective, updates, schedules, and we also discuss, different topics kind of as the core of that session, usually geared around the network upgrade process or future things we might include in a network upgrade, and just kind of drill in on that a little bit. And then we also provide a forum update on a weekly basis that just kind of has a summary of activity for the week. So you can go check out the most recent one, and then also kind of back into the last few weeks updates that occurred since the last gardening club. So one other big announcement is Canopy is going to activate in roughly 14 days. So it'll be on November the 18th at 11:01 roughly, again, UTC. That time will vary by just a few minutes, either plus or minus, but it's going to be roughly at that time. So just to make everyone aware, we have plenty of information on our website about it. You can also go to z.cash/upgrade/canopy, and that gives you this exact timer countdown. It also provides more information on the zips included in the network upgrade. So the big item, of course, is it establishes the Dev Fund, and then there's a number of zips associated with that. So, all right, let's see. Something popped into chat. Oh, it says, oh, okay, from Kevin. Okay, no problem. We'll take care of that. Yep. Okay. Okay. So moving on. Get going here. Okay, so Holmes won't make it, so we'll skip over. We have Ibec from the Unstoppable Wallet, maybe the Unstoppable Project. I'm not exactly sure how it's classified, but it's the Unstoppable Wallet, which is a pretty awesome project and product. And then Juan Lenny from Zondax is going to be talking about some work that he and his team have been doing on ledger integration with Zcash. So with that, I'll skip over Holmes, the placeholder, and I'll turn it over to Ibec. And again, Ibec, more than, if you need to share your screen, I can absolutely get out of this and turn it over to you.
No, I don't need to share anything. I mean, I can talk, and if there is a need, I will let you know.
Okay, sounds good. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, normally we're called horizontal systems. Like Unstoppable is a project of ours. It's our flagman project, and it's well, basically a wallet, a decentralized wallet. So um, the idea was to create a product where I can, or someone can move a lot of funds and easily invest in any blockchain or token or anything that's on the blockchain, basically, and swap, trade, and all of that in a decentralized manner to the extent that's currently possible. Yeah, and we are more or less there. And yeah, and Zcash for us specifically is interesting because it's the very first privacy coin we are integrating, privacy blockchain. So I'm looking forward to it, to interact with it, like to see how I can uh, move funds from the exchange to my Zcash wallet. How that works. For example, I haven't really experienced Zcash privately because I know that not all exchanges are supporting that. I know that you guys are working on that. Uh, so yeah, but there are some already. So I'm assuming it's going to increase. Uh, so yeah, that's interesting for us. Uh,
So you've been you and your team, you've been working with our wallet team to add Zcash support to the wallet, the Unstoppable wallet.
yeah,
And as I understand, I know we have Brad and Kevin and Paku on the call as well, who you've worked with. So what was that? As I understand it, you kind of did some integration of our SDKs into your
yeah,
wallet,
yeah.
and
Uh,
pretty quick, right? It was pretty quick
yeah.
effort.
Yeah. So we, like, for the last couple of, like, 1.5 years, we spent a lot of time integrating various blockchain SDKs to our client platform. Let me say that, and so we have some experience with that. And Zcash was not the very first one we worked with. Like, we worked with Algorand and Binance, Litecoin. I mean, a lot of others. But the Zcash one was quick because, well, it's a good SDK, and your developers we like to work we like to work with you because your developers are very responsive. We can get things done pretty quickly, like, and that's good for us. That's why it was kind of quick. uh, so it took us a couple of weeks, like, to actually implement it, and maybe a week to kind of research it. And so in our next release, we are going to release the first implementation. And in the release, and that first one will pretty much have everything that you guys uh, provide on a blockchain. Uh, but some UI enhancements will come maybe in a release in 4 weeks from now. So that was kind of quick for us, and we put, like, well, like, three of us just worked on the project really intensively, but like, most of the other engineers worked on some other stuff as well. So it was quite easy on our part. Like, most of the work has been already done by your team. So
was there anything that gave you any difficulty that we could improve?
I know there were some architectural inconsistencies on the Android side, but I haven't really, like, caught up with the I've been following the discussion, and I know that we kind of adapted some of our things to adapt to the SDK, but it's nothing substantial. I mean, it was still fairly easy and uh, like, yeah, easy.
Thank you. It's good to hear.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, and that support in, I know our wallet team knows all the answers to this. I'm just bringing it out for those that might be on the call, or will, you know, we have a lot of people that listen to the recordings after the fact. The support, so Unstoppable is a multi-cryptocurrency wallet. So you've got support for a ton of other coins, in addition to having working on Zcash support now, and that's shielded support, as I understand it, correct? So it's support. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, it's both, like both shielded and transparent. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
So, quick question. I beg. So you submitted the Gitcoin grant proposal, right? And I believe that was for converting Zcash with Renzec and connecting it to DeFi more broadly. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you submitted for the grant?
Yeah. Well, basically, like it's one thing to get Zcash into the wallet and get like people to keep it there, right, and transact between those people that have Zcash. But it's another thing to have Zcash, to connect Zcash to the rest of the ecosystem. For example, right now, like in this very release in parallel, we're making us like we are integrating full support with the Uniswap protocol. Like basically, whatever MetaMask wallet can do on the Chrome, our wallet users can do the same thing in the wallet app. And what that basically means for Zcash is that by connecting Zcash via REN protocol to Ethereum, well, you can kind of have like seamless swaps, which is pretty cool. Because I kind of use it right now within the wallet app, and at the same time I have kind of experienced like the browser way and stuff, and well, it was cool until like recently, but now like I prefer to do a lot of things in the app, and it's kind of cool when you can easily swap one coin for another without kind of going through without leaking any privacy, basically. So yeah, in our wallet right now we have 7 blockchains basically, or 8, yeah, and we can basically, like, the plan is to kind of interconnect all of them, and we don't really need to invent anything. We just connect the existing protocols which were built like in the last couple of years, and and we interconnect all of them within the client. And that's what we kind of want to do with the Zcash. Right now it's isolated because like you can kind of keep it, send it, receive it, but you cannot really swap it. Like if you have Bitcoin in your wallet, it would be kind of cool to be able to convert part of it to Zcash. And right now, the only way to do it, if you do it via like centralized exchange. And but technologically, and there is no reason not to be able, like you can actually do it without it, just like using things like REN and then Uniswap and so on. So that's the plan. It would be kind of cool if we can have part of the grant, if there is any such grant, or we're kind of doing that regardless. So we have to spend our own funds, but that's cool. But if we have a grant, it would be cooler, yeah. So, but yeah, so that's the plan.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I mentioned Gitcoin grants early in the call, and the way Gitcoin grants work, it uses a methodology called quadratic funding. So if you go in, your grant is kind of matched, but the more individuals that donate to a certain project, then the more those grants are amplified. So it's almost like you take, it's almost like each grant is a vote for the project in a way, and I'm oversimplifying how it actually works. But the more individual grants there are for a given project, then the more total funds that project will get. So definitely, it's a great. I'm super excited about this, and I want to thank you for all the hard work on it, you and your team. And yeah, please go out and put in a grant or put in a whatever you call it. I don't even know what you call it. I'm sure it's not a bid, but make a donation or whatever to the project. So it's a great one. I also wanted to ask you. You talked about swapping tokens in the wallet, like Zec for Bitcoin, for example. Have you looked at longer term, like any kind of fee structure within your wallet to? Obviously, you got to go out to like decentralized exchanges to actually perform the swap, I'm assuming. And then is there any kind of, are you thinking down the line about potentially you could charge some fees? And I'm just thinking like MetaMask swaps. I don't know if you follow that project, but that's kind of one of their methodologies for, kind of sustainable funding for that project. So.
My take, like I have some experience and our team, basically that we have been building together like things maybe last 7 years. So we have some experience building like platforms. And the way we see wallets, wallet is a platform, and each user on that platform is essentially like a user with some money or like capital, right? And if you can provide value to that specific user, ultimately if that value is good enough, they'll pay for things. And we see a lot of opportunities to build upon the existing features. And I'll like give you an example. For example, like in our wallet app right now, you can see the price chart for Zcash, and you can like see how it performed over the last couple of years, and like get some basic technical analysis stuff. But at the same time, there is a Zcash blockchain, right? Well, maybe it's not a good example, it's a private one, but right, if you take any public blockchain, there is a lot of activity on the blockchain itself. Like on the Bitcoin blockchain, you can measure a lot of things and you can get a lot of data from there. So we can basically, some of the things we kind of explore, we can build a lot of such features which will be available to the people who would be willing to like pay extra for them. And yeah, it's that's like kind of the plan. But at the same time, we want to keep the wallet as decentralized and as private as possible. So there is some challenge around that.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks very much, Ibek. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to Juan and Zondax. And again, Juan, if you have any screen you want to present, more than happy for you to do that, or we can just keep this slide up and you can talk off of this one if you'd like.
Yeah, I have a couple of slides, so probably
okay. All right, I'll stop sharing, and yeah, you should be able to do that now. So.
Perfect. Yes. Okay, so basically the idea was to provide an update on the work we've been doing. It has been like longer than we already planned because it was not easy at all. But I wanted to discuss like where we are and give you an update on Milestone 3. So just to start, this is a slide from my previous talk, but to give people an idea of why it's so hard to get like hardware wallet support in Zcash and in general. I mean, like hardware wallets, at least the one that we are using, that is Ledger Nano S, has like 4,000 bytes of RAM. So we have to do everything inside there. And that's really challenging. So we have been able to optimize things, kind of like extract memory from places and a lot of tricks. And we have managed to do that. There are also other things like the Zcash protocol is not like the simplest. The cryptography is much more complex than the other projects. And then there is additional work that we have a hybrid implementation. We have like C and Rust combined. We have like problems with GCC and LVM and things like that that complicate things beyond what we are normally used to. But all this is kind of like old stuff. We managed to get all this working. So where we are today is we have like a functional app for both Nano S and X. It's almost feature complete. We are like working a bit on the user interface, but that's already working. We support like signing for shielded and unshielded addresses in the hardware wallet. Cryptography is mostly complete. I mean, we have like all the features working. We support like combinations of shielded and unshielded addresses, like inputs and outputs in any way. And at the moment, we're mostly working on integration libraries and finalizing and testing everything. But the whole workflow fits, and we can get signatures out of the UIs, and everything is good finally. The last few weeks have been like mostly about testing, and talking to other wallets in the ecosystem. Like I cannot just name them just in case, but you can imagine which ones. And we are exploring like how to support them in the integration, like in the next couple of months, because I think it's not going to be a conventional integration, because we don't. I mean, normally in a ledger device, you have a situation where you can say, okay, this is what I want to sign. You send it to the device, and you get the signature out. In this case, we need to start like sending pieces. It's very much interactive, so it requires a lot of information going back and forth. So we cannot like just hide that, and we're trying to encapsulate that behind some code, so people do not need to deal with all this, but requires a bit more work than a normal hardware wallet integration effort. So I mean, kind of like catching up of the whole timeline. We started like at the beginning of the year. We got the milestone 1 in April 2020, where we had address generation and unshielded support. Milestones 2 was in July. We have at that point all the cryptographic building blocks. We have already like Peterson commitment, key agreements, and all the other things that you need for the complete support. But we still have to put all these Lego blocks together. And now, late November, we have like full support for shielded and unshielded. And the plan is to kind of like clean up the code, like make it a bit more accessible, because we have been experimenting quite a lot. So we have to make it like a bit nicer. Probably like next week we are there, and make it open source. And the idea is that we are trying to discuss first how we can audit this before it goes like for public production level use, and also talking to other teams to do the corresponding integrations. Then there is something called Milestone 4 that is really very much unclear, because Milestone 4 is Ledger releasing that in their app store, and that typically requires Ledger to go through a review process. They are obviously they will like streamline a bit, and we have like a lot of experience in that, so I don't think that we'll have like much trouble, but still it requires some work, and obviously kind of a holiday season slow things down. So we expect that if we have like open code and everything ready for review end of November, it's likely that December is not going to be the most active month ever. So I expect that this is not happening before January. And that's super quick overview of where we are. But obviously, I'm happy to go through some of the questions of the features we have and the expectation. So because I received like some emails and people like asking like where we are. Basically, the expectation is that by end of next week, we should be able to open up the Milestones 3, like merge it into the public repository that today contains code for Milestones 2. Normally, if you look at our repositories in GitHub, we do open development for everything. I mean, we don't have like these private repos. But in the case of Zcash, the reason we did that is for on one side, we have like a lot of experimentation, and on the other, we didn't want people to start like using the app before it was ready, because we want to kind of like be very careful about like, I don't know, getting like counterfeit versions around or getting like problems with privacy, and it was a bit more sensitive, because the shielded support is not just about signing, but it's also like keeping like keys about like privacy, and there are like all other features. So we wanted to have a bit more conservative approach there. But the idea is that by next week we open like all the code, and there, if you're like interested in side loading or like trying like locally, please don't use it with money. But you can use a Nano S for that, and also in the repository you have an emulator, so you can also play with the emulator if you want to save time. You have a Rust library to talk to the ledger from Rust. You have a JavaScript library to talk to a ledger from JavaScript, and we have like all the integration tests, unit tests, continuous integration, and everything there. So I mean, the idea is if we get like contributions, people looking at the code, digging, trying to find like where we misunderstood or we made a mistake or anything, that's going to be super valuable. So I mean, from the community point of view, ideally we would say, I mean, it's not like a very broad community that can actually review the code, but if anyone can review the code before we go into a more formal audit, it's always possible, because it's not like the most simple project from a cryptographic point of view. Yep. So that's all from my side. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi there.
Yes.
Okay. So what was the most difficult thing to get into the memory?
I mean, it's like life. I mean, probably the most recent, because I forgot. Peterson commitments was quite challenging because the code was exploding that into bytes and stuff like that. We have to really work at the bit level to optimize that. The other thing was like all the interactive communication that we have to do, because we have to kind of store partial information in Flash. We cannot keep everything in memory. So there is a lot of like cutting things in chunks and pass on one side to the other. But I think in general, those were the harder things. At first we struggled a bit with combining C and Rust, but later that was okay. The problem with Rust is that there are some technical issues like memory elision that is not like great there, and then
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said there.
Elision. When you return like a memory from one function to the other, sometimes it doesn't do a move. You keep copies all the way through, and
right. I see.
And then in some cases we were like kind of we have to cheat a bit, keeping information passing between like C and Rust until we manage to. So the main issue I would say is the code that you have, the reference code that we had, like from the Zcash project, like the libraries, was good, but we had to hack around because in some cases you could not do everything in a single function call. We had to kind of slice that in multiple places and kind of like go up and down in the call stack. Maybe this is too technical for this call, but the call stack limitations were like one of the biggest issues too. So Peterson commitment, call stack limitations, and slicing things so we could keep them in Flash, not to kind of like over allocate the RAM.
Cool, thank you. Another question, did you have any specific company in mind for the formal audit?
I mean, I would love ECC to do that. I think
I'd somehow got the impression that you were talking about an auditing company like NCC or
NCC, yeah.
Yeah, so we I mean, the thing is, we don't have the funding ourselves to get the audit. I mean, probably this is something that we need to coordinate with the foundation or ACC or someone else to fund that audit. We would love to have that. I mean, initially we have a kind of like informal commitment or agreement that we were like making this public, but we wanted an audit just in case, because it's a good way of doing things. But we don't have any kind of like formal or any company that we would have that we have already approached about this. Obviously, I mean, any suggestion makes sense.
Okay. Yeah,
Least Authority does that as well. Least Authority is another company that does those kind of audits. So.
Yeah. I work with a few auditors in the past for other products, but Zcash is a very special one. So, I mean, I don't think we are looking for an audit. Obviously, you can get an audit on the code, like how we code it. That's one of the things. Right. But the part that we are most interested in is an audit of how we modify the cryptography. We didn't modify the cryptography from an algorithmic point of view, but the implementation is slightly different, and we have to slice it, and we have to pass keys in a different way, and we have to modify, like, for example, as I said, PRS and commitments, we have to change that a bit. Initially, we could use something, and we have to use AES, and there are like some things that are slightly different, not completely, but it's something that we have to kind of like pay attention to.
Yeah, I think probably the best thing to do is for us to have a look at the code in depth, and then if we think it's useful for a third-party auditor to look at it as well, then we could recommend that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, Juan. It's been really great working with you and your team, by the way, on this. So very impressive work that y'all have done. So.
Glad to hear. It was also very challenging and interesting. We loved it, actually. It's really nice. I mean, it's actually like a real puzzle. You come from JavaScript with like JPEGs that are like megabytes, and then you have to put all these things in like, I don't know, something so tiny. So it's quite cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I've done embedded programming before. It can be really fun.
All right. Well, we've got a few extra minutes, and I saw some topics that popped into the chat. Dan has a website blog called Zcash Zeal. And Dan, are you still able? You said you wanted to do kind of a short demo on that.
Yeah, if I could pull up the screen share. Think I could get it to work here on the iPad. Otherwise,
if you want to just put the link in the chat, I'll bring it up and share it.
Sure.
Yeah, that works.
Thank you.
Yep. And then while we're doing that, yeah, there's a couple of things in the chat. One, Mitchell's on the call. Mitchell and his team have worked on something called Zcash Observatory, which has some incredible metrics, you know, from the blockchain about Zcash and usage and trends. And he also has a Gitcoin grant in. So another great project to support. So no shortage of really great things to support out there. So definitely go take a look at his as well. And then if there are any others, let's get those out there also.
Okay, cool.
All right. Yeah, so I'm assuming everyone can see that. Okay.
Yeah, so I still have it password protected because I haven't really launched it yet. I'm just looking for some feedback, and I figured this would be a good chance to share it with some people who could check it out. That's the homepage for now. I did set up a Gitcoin grant, which has the link on top there. And right now there's only those 3 blog posts in there from a few of our community members. I'm looking for submissions if anybody has anything they'd like posted. The goal is to kind of have this be community focused and have a lot of content submitted to us. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll see at the bottom, I got the little ticker in there. You could, you know, we're always down if you want to submit or talk via the Z2Z memos. That works for us. And then
very good.
If you scroll back up, we can just click on a couple of the other tabs. I don't want to take up too much time here. The Learn tab, I just have a bunch of links for people to get started and learn. Mostly, I mean, there's some technical stuff. I'd say it's good for, you know, onboarding new users. all of it is links to other, a lot of ECC stuff, some foundation stuff, and other community tutorials and whatnot. So the learning tab, then there's a Tinker tab. On there, it's just links to a couple of the community wallets, SideShift for swapping, obviously Gemini, Michael Harm's ZSend Many ZEC mailer, the newly launched Wrap ZEC, and then a Flex to Spend tab, just to get people, you know, easily be able to click in and tinker a bit. And then I believe the next tab, I just had some development links for people who wanted to learn about that. It has the integration guide from the docs, your guys' build shielded post.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, yep. And then the goal eventually here, I have some podcast guests lined up that will be launching soon after. And then the contact page has our Z2Z QR code if anybody wants to chat. And that's kind of the gist of it. I appreciate the time real quick here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well no, thank you for volunteering. No, this is pretty awesome. Yeah, very nice. So
Cool.
it's password protected at the moment. When do you're just kind of getting a little more content, you said, I believe,
Yeah,
and then you're gonna kind of open it up? Okay.
Yeah, I have a few more drafts that I'm editing. I'm hoping to get a couple more submissions if anybody wants to get involved. I'd say I'd like to remove the password next week, you know, leading and put out some more content leading up to the halving.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
So that's that. Yeah. If anybody has any feedback for me, you could Z2Z or the email is there. Whatever, I would just love to hear from some people.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much, Dan. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Looks good. I like it. I like the colors.
Appreciate it.
Those are awesome. Okay, and I believe there was also a suggestion from Aditya. I was just kind of asking for an update on Zip 313. So, Kevin, did you want to just kind of talk to that a bit really quickly?
Sure. So Adi, who started the Zip 313, I will actually drop a link to the Zip and the pull request for it. Oops, that was the wrong chat. Hold on. Okay. So that is the pull request for the Zip, and then here is kind of a conversation around it. But basically, this is a Zip for reducing the fees in light clients. So just in general, because Gardening Club, we're kind of sharing things we're building. So a lot of us here are building applications, and there was a question that popped up in the community, like, why is our fee set to 0.0001? And the response was, we can change it. And so given that response, there's been a conversation that I just linked about, well, if we're going to change it, what do we change it to? And that kind of, from my interpretation, split into two conversations, like a really thoughtful, like EIP 1559, like Ethereum, really complicated solution, and a short-term, like right now, what can we do before Canopy solution? And so the Zip 313 started to drift towards the, what might we just want to change it to before Canopy? Do we want to just like cut it in half and then maybe all just agree on that and update the products that we're working on to match that, and then save the like really hard, complicated problems for later. And that seems to be the consensus. And so at this point, it's Aditya who makes Zec Wallet. He's already done the code because he's super fast and awesome, and he has a pull request out and can merge that into Zec Wallet. So the light, Zec Wallet Lite, and the full Zec Wallet as well could both implement those fees. And this is something that we can just do as people that are building things and just kind of say, well, at this point, we're going to agree on this fee and then go forward until we have to agree on something else. So part of this change is to make it easier to change in the future, so that if it does need to change, there's not as much friction if we need to make things better or improve in some way. So
I did have some comments that I hadn't had chance to make yet. So 2 comments basically. The first would be really straightforward to fix, which is that there is another zip about mempool limitation. I think it's zip 40 something, 401 or 2, that needs updating with the new standard fee, because otherwise transactions with the new fee will get penalized by Zcash. So that's straightforward. The other thing is, do we want to make the fee dependent on transaction size? Because at the moment, there's nothing to stop. Well, there's nothing even to mildly discourage someone, which I think is the point here, from putting large images or sound files or videos or whatever on the blockchain. So it seems, just working out the concrete costs just by sort of multiplying the, if we take a typical transaction size, say, I don't know, 4,000 bytes, and we say that that's going to cost 1,000 Satoshi, and then we were to scale that up to a 2 megabyte block, then a 2 megabyte transaction would still only be paying a very small fee. I think I worked it out before, and it was about 23 cents in USD with the current price. So basically, I'm not sure that that is large enough to even be worth doing, but I'm interested in other people's feedback.
Yeah, so I think for the, I don't know how much more time we have for Gardening Club, but there's definitely open threads on both the pull request and on the forum, and I think that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I know adding the fee per size would have complicated things for something Gemini was doing, but I can't remember exactly what they said about how it made things more complicated, or if it was a blocker. It might have been just like more complicated, but not a problem. So yeah, I think that Adi was asking about next steps, and sounds like there's definitely a next step for Zcash side to make sure that adjusted fees aren't incompatible with what's there now. And then the other piece is just trying to move the consensus forward, I guess, among light clients, like what approach would make sense. So if it's just a change in the number, like it might be the case that, you know, going by size is still a bit too much complication. So maybe we just cut the fees in half instead of by a factor of 10, like that kind of thing. But I would just encourage everyone to check out those links that I posted and contribute questions and conversations.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can move toward a consensus. And Adi, let me know if there's anything else you wanted me to mention that I didn't touch on.
So from a timescale point of view, in order to make that change to Zcash to not penalize transactions with a fee less than 10,000 Satoshi, we could only do that in version 4.2. So that puts a limit. It will have to be done 6 weeks from now.
Yep. Right.
Good to know.
I think that other zip 401, Dara, that you're referring to, the mempool denial of service.
Yes.
Something different. Okay. Yeah. Zip 401. Right. Okay. All
yeah.
right,
So if you that defines a standard fee of 10,000 Satoshi, and then the cost of a transaction that pays less than that fee is some multiple. I can't remember what it is now. Let me just check that now. It is, okay. In that case, it would pay an extra low fee penalty of 16,000 units. So typically a small transaction would cost 4,000 units. So it's penalizing it by a factor of 4 relative to other transactions.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, let's keep the discussion going in the pull request that's there, and any other feedback from the community that anyone has, that would be great. Can funnel it through the Light Client Working Group through Kevin or through the PR or whatever is easiest for you, or just reach out directly to a member of the team. So I think that kind of got us through everything. I want to thank everyone for being on the call. I want to thank Ibec and Juan and Dan for presenting. And Dan, thanks for jumping in impromptu. And I think that's a great site. And Dan did put a link in there to the site again at zcashzeal.org, and the password in there in the chat as well. It will be password protected for, I believe, about another week. But yeah, so any feedback on that, I'm sure Dan would appreciate it. And yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us today. And look forward to seeing you on the Arborist calls on Thursday again, if you're interested. And then of course, the next gardening club will be early in December. So. All right, everyone have a good rest of the day.